What's up, everybody? Welcome to the bracket reveal, stage 3, with Fred Coughlin.
Good evening.
I already feel better, and you should too. Everybody watches WWE and Dragon Ball Super, apparently, so we're good to go.
Woohoo! Okay, good.
Channel the inner kid.
And I may or may not, for those of you watching at home, I may or may not have the WWE sitting on my phone at least muted, so you won't hear anything. I will not react to it, but I may hear, so I may be seeing some of the stuff, and as I said, I will try to refrain from any spoilers.
All right, Fred is probably much louder now.
What?
Just got to find a way to make you loud on Discord and not blow my ears out here.
No worries.
All right, we've got the hosts over here. Looks like we got quite an active chat. So, Adagino's Fred, I'm going to go ahead and submit the score, and round 3 will be underway.
Beautiful.
And there we go.
All right, let's get the shindig. Round 3 matchups. Oh my. Oh, baby.
Before I leave, I just want to say, Fred.
Wow.
On you.
Surely you can't be serious.
He's 100% serious. Wow, these matchups are insane.
No, I'm going to have to look at them here in a second. I'm looking forward to some of the madness here. Okay, here we go.
All right. Well, let me know when you're ready, Fred, and we'll kick this off. I'll let people just let this sink in a little bit. Man, we got some killer matchups.
I'm already terrified beyond the capacity of rational thought.
Oh my goodness, this is just so good.
Okay, let me do that. Push that.
Yeah, I did not get you, Redbird. I'll see you in round 3. Provided we both win, of course. Or we could both lose. We could just play in the 2-1 bracket.
All right. Theoretically, stress on theoretically, you'd think by this point I would have automated some of this stuff more to be able to do this, but theoretically, that sheet is now live for everyone to be able to schedule their matches, and now I can actually take a look at this, aside from cringing at what I just saw at the very beginning.
Yeah, our very first matchup here is Your Majesty, which if you knew Dark Rupee, that's who Your Majesty is, did a name change, versus Rick, who just finished. Dark Rupee is not a stranger to the randomizer by any means. He's been around for a long time. Sometimes struggles a bit in the early rounds of our tournaments because he only plays when the tournament actually happens, and sometimes struggles with the flags early on. But then towards the end of the tournament, really starts to kick it into high gear. And we just saw Rick pull out a 58. So I mean, this is going to be a good matchup in the 1-1 group.
Oh, absolutely. As you said, Dark Rupee, Your Majesty has had, always been a strong player from back in the day, has definitely been improving. Actually, Rick and Dark Rupee have actually only played 7 times up to this point, if you believe that in the head-to-head. So,
wow.
Not a ton of there. Rick's currently got a slight edge on that side, but I think it could potentially be an incredibly close matchup here when they do play. So it really will come down to, the play level there, because as I said, both of them can easily win this match.
Try to slide up here just a little bit so we can catch all of the... There we go. Get the full round 2 bracket with the round 3 here. Next up, I'm a Sock versus Penulf. So 2 guys I actually know pretty well. I'm a Sock is in my chat a lot. He actually gave Jam a run for his money in the very first round. Only finishing, I think it was 7 minutes behind Jam. So again, struggled a little bit, I think, in the second round with Viknin there. They both had a bit of a rough time there at the end of their seed. I think a lot of it had to do with the time scheduling due to the time difference. But a very competent player for being as new as he is. He's only been playing for about a month. Has already learned screen scrolls, block clips. He's really good at combat. And then you got on the other side, you have Panolf, who is our French ambassador. If you don't know who Pan is, then you should go find out, because this dude is awesome. He sings on stream. He's done a ton to pull in a bunch of the French community and the people over in Europe to come play with us. So this I think is going to be a very, very good matchup.
Oh, agreed. Both of these players play really well. As you said, Pan has been playing now for a couple of years, basically serving, as you said, the French ambassador. He has really well played. He doesn't necessarily play against everyone race time, mainly just because of the time difference. But when he does play, he is a very solid player. He's built up over time. And, I'm a sock just learning the game as quickly. It's tough to learn Zelda in general, let alone Zelda Randomizer here, within a month. And the fact that he's already pulling off all the tricks and, gave Jam, of all people, an incredibly solid race. It's certainly someone to watch out for in the future. It's going to be a really exciting match.
And next up, Paratrooper 1 versus Cantaloupe Me. We actually just saw Paratrooper take on Unos there, and didn't do too bad. We were talking to him a little bit after the race, and I think a lot of that came down to just, his routing was fantastic. His combat was fantastic. It just so happened Unos went over to the graveyard, and that was where the sword and the red candle was, and it just kind of took off from there. But, Paratrooper played the seed extremely well. And again, he's one of our guys that kind of only shows up for tournament time, but when he does, he really does show up. And then everybody should know who Cantaloupe Me is, right? He's, the second person in the world with a sub 29 and 80% no up and 8, which is insane. His combat skills are nearly second to none. And he took an unfortunate loss in the previous round, but he's really been putting in the time into Randomizer. And when he gets a seed, man, that he figures out, it's very hard to beat him.
Oh no, I mean, Cant brings to the table skills at this game. I mean, if you ever watched him play any percent when he's drilling it, there are times where he will decide, okay, I, am out of bombs or something, but I don't feel like even this run up because I want to do things later on. And, essentially improvs some of the route, which is, again, a skill you need to have in Randomizer to be able to, handle those types of situations. I don't have bombs. He's master at keeping the count to force bombs when he needs to. He's a master of, screen scrolls, movement in the game, combat, pretty much you name it. He's there, seeing his any percent experience, and he's really picking it up lately. The Randomizer side. Paratroopa is another one who has been in some of the previous tournaments. I haven't seen a ton of him lately, but again, we saw him earlier tonight, and this has another exciting potential. I mean, I like a lot of these matchups as we're looking at them have a ton of potential here to be able to, get some great matches, and I think this is going to be one to definitely keep an eye on.
Yeah, I mean, as that's the beauty of Swiss. As we start to move deeper into the Swiss round, you really start to get matched up against people that are really in your skill level, and the matches are just going to get better as you go on. And it's really exciting to see these things as we go on. And next matchup is King Doll versus Tetra. Tetra did take a win against the Lady Prismillion in the last round, and King Doll was up against CCX. King Doll, no slouch to Randomizer. He's been around a really long time too.
I want to say back in the beta days of even before version 1.0, I want to say I remember King Doll being around. So he's definitely been around for a long time. Has been a solid player on the races. Has been able to put in decent times. I don't know if he's played Tetris specifically. We'll find out here in a second. But as I said, so far those two have been. I think this has potential to come along as a pretty good matchup. Tetra has been playing the game a lot, is regularly there on the Sunday races and some of the nightly races as well, and skill wise has improved a ton over the past few months, and so this has really solid potential for a 1-1 match to be able to have both of them go along here very well.
Yeah, I mean, I had King Doll in the randomizer tournament, the previous one, and he does a lot of interesting things with routing sometimes, which can really pay off. And he got the ladder really early in that match against me, and if I had done just even one little bitty thing wrong compared to what I did, he would have easily won that race. And so he's one of those that sometimes, is a little inconsistent and can have really high game times, but a lot of the time he's finishing in like the top 25%. So he can be really tough opponent to beat. And I haven't seen a lot of Tetra, but, I've heard, like you were saying, a lot of good things from a lot of people, doing really well in all the Sunday races and that sort of thing. So it should be a really good match.
I completely agree. As I said, Tetra's been putting in some really solid times there, and the Sunday races has been, considerably improving, skill-wise, and I think this has potential of being a really close one. It's going to come down to level 9 on this one, I predict.
Next up, TGE and Pain Train.
Ooh.
So everybody knows TGE, the mighty prophet for Lord Banana himself. Very good player. Sometimes has some really bad luck, but he's very good at this game. He's been around for a really long time too, and he just knows how to get things done right. And Pain Train has again one of those people who's been around a really long time, and doesn't necessarily participate in the nightly races all the time, but when the tournament comes, shows up and usually does pretty well.
Oh, completely agreed. As I said, TGE has here in the tournament so far, TGE's had unfortunately had a forfeit against his opponent in the second round. His first match he played against Karakarn, and it was a very close match. Just came down to Karakarn. I believe, I don't know exactly what it was that Karakarn found a little earlier, but basically it just came down to that that one level scenario coming into play. But TGE plays very regularly in the nightly races, aside from his minor obsession over one certain item in the game. He's a student of the game, has been calling these races pretty much from the beginning, and knows the strategies, knows all that stuff, and always has great potential here. And when it comes to M-Pain has also been around, I want to say, an incredibly long time. I'm not sure exactly when M-Pain started itself, but has definitely been around. Was a incredibly close loss in round 1. Was played against Geocrest, and it looks like a 37-second loss in round 1 there. And then trying to do the quick Google search here to find where round 1 was. Of course, now not showing up on my load. Beat Javeth in round 2, and Javeth has been playing this game for a while too. So, you've got really solid. Again, you've got solid players here, and I know I'm going to say that a lot, but I think almost any of these matchups have potential to swing either way, and this is definitely going to be one of those tight matches. I'll see if I can. Hopefully, they'll schedule it on a night where I conveniently happen to be around, because I'd love to get the call on that one.
Yeah, for sure. Next up, we have Shiner CCC and Duke Firebird. Shiner CC, another one of those guys who's been around forever. Early days of the randomizer. Also, one of those people who just shows up for the tournament, and usually does extremely well. Played against the Seawolf, unfortunately lost last round. I don't remember who they played in the first round. I'd have to look at that, but always does pretty darn good in these once they get acclimated to the flags. Again, a lot of times it's hard with these tournaments, with as much as the randomizer evolves, right? From 6 months to a year, a lot of things change. So if you really haven't had an opportunity to practice a whole lot, then sometimes you have to get acclimated to the seeds and stuff. But definitely a competent player. And then Duke Firebird, who has just started playing, I think, recently, but has also put up some really good times and really improved their overall game. I know he's had some really tough seeds as well, which has kind of pushed the times up a little bit in the tournament. But, I've watched his races, and he's been in some of the nightly races, and he does really well.
I'm completely agreed. I mean, looking at the matchups that they've had so far, Shiner in round 1 played against Raikou and actually beat Raikou Rider, and that was a really solid matchup. Two players who are incredibly good, and for Shiner to pull out that win was a really good time. Round 2 was played against Seawolf, and I believe that was another one where that again, a lot of these game matches can come down to that one wrong turn of and not even truly a wrong turn, just someone made a play into one level, found the item that they needed, and go from there. And I know that matchup was really close. I know Duke has been also playing very well in the first couple of matches. Played against Epic Yoshi in round 1 and got the win, and then round 2 played against Redbird Grass, the Battle of the Birds there. And so you've had, two pretty solid matches. I think Shiner is probably going to have the edge. I haven't seen much of a head-to-head between these two necessarily, but I think Shiner might have a slight edge here. But as I said, we've easily got the potential for this to go either way.
Next up, Dr. J, PhD against Zarby 89. Dr. J been around for a while and also always does really well. His first round was against Amazing Toaster, where he won that match, and then the next round he got matched up against Pierpont Lemkin, who we'll get to him a little bit later, but he just pops up and just does really well whenever he's in these sort of things, and only lost that one by a little bit less than 7 minutes, so put up a really good fight there. And then Zarby 89, I remember casting his first game in the Random Percent tournament, and he had a really rough time. And it's 6 months later down the line here, seeing how far he's come along in his ability in this game is extremely encouraging.
Oh, completely agreed. I mean, when you are playing in a Random Percent tournament essentially as your first introduction to the game, it's a much bigger challenge because you don't even know what the flags are. You don't even know what you're fighting. So it's really tough to say, okay, you're going to see certain players where you're going to get the advantage. Oh, I understand that. Looks like the items aren't changed, so I can dig level 1 for the bow. I can dig level 6 for the wand if I need it. Things like that end up going easier. But here where the flags are consistent, we're seeing Zarby getting some good times here. RBG got the win, as we were talking about earlier, about RBG, but RBG got the win over Zarby in round 1, so that was a good match. And then Zarby was able to get the win in round 2 over Epic Yoshi. So Zarby is certainly showing great signs of improvement here, and I think that against Dr. J, who is, again, participates in those nightly races and has been really competitive in terms of, significant improvements over the time since I've started seeing him play. And I think you've got some really good potential here for, again, another close finish. I know I keep saying that, but, with the matchups that we're seeing here, I've not really seen any lopsided matchups so far.
Yeah, and my apologies. I guess Dr. J lost to Toaster in the first round, so my apologies, sir.
But I was gonna say, and then actually, yeah, that worked out. Looking at the wrong one here, so ignore me.
All right, next up, Sis Crusher versus Meg McAttack. Sis Crusher, another one of those guys that has started recently and has definitely come on with the storm, done very, very well in the nightly races, and has really improved their times. And Meg, I believe, races a lot in the Sunday matches. I haven't actually had a chance to race against them very often, but again, doing very well there. And both of them in the 1-1 group. This should be a good matchup.
Oh, absolutely. I'm looking back at a little bit of the stats here. They have played actually only 4 times so far in their careers, but in those 4 times I'm looking, most of those wins are like 2-3 minutes apart. Looking at the data, I remember watching Sis Crusher play earlier in the tournament. I think actually I got to call one of his his first match, and he ended up putting a really solid time. A second match, and it was in round 2. Put a really solid time on the board. We had a minor hiccup on finding where the silver arrows. I believe he thought he had them in his inventory when he got to Ganon and realized that he didn't have it. But even with that, put up a really solid time. I believe it was against Lady. Of course, I now have this everything popping up in the wrong windows here. Against Ninja Claire. That's who it was who played in round 2. And in round 1, played against Toaster, and Toaster was able to take the win on that one, but put up a good time there. So Sis Crusher's in great shape. Meg McAttack has also been often involved on those Sunday races, has been significantly improving. We've been seeing as I said, really solid play out of her up to this point. In the first couple of rounds here, beat Lord of the Synth in round 2. Round 1, lost actually a really close race against Sidariel. So we've got, as I said, just based on the stats I'm seeing, looking at things here, this has a lot of potential to be another close race that can easily come down to level 9. As I said, when you've got 4 races and 3 of them are decided within 3-4 minutes of each other, that's really got potential for us.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely looking forward to that one. It'll be a good race. Next up, TA909 and Zarnax 42.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, Zarnax.
That is going to be a fun one.
Zarnax, no stranger whatsoever to this randomizer. Took and hit a 67-18 in this first round. Had an unfortunate, I think it was level 9 is what it was. Something, he had just struggled a little bit at the end of his other game and had a little bit of a lead. And Sidra was able to come back and make the comeback on that one. And so he dropped down to the 1-1. And TA had the surprise welcome back to Pierpont, match in the very first one, and barely lost that one by, I think it was like 30 seconds. So, TA, one of the top guys right now in shapes, and Zarnax again, no slouch. He races all the time, and he places top, high up all the time as well. This should be a fantastic match.
Oh, this is gonna be a beautiful match to watch. As you said, TA races, a lot of those nightly races, just times, out of the blue before, started noticing TA, shortly before the tournament came out, and he's come along very quickly, puts up incredibly solid times in terms of the gameplay, regularly places very high in the nightly races. I know he ended up racing one or two of my seeds essentially in parallel during my tournament races, and we were also getting really close times as well, so he is great. Zarnax has also put up incredibly good times, very good vanilla Zelda player too. Back in the day, I remember playing him a couple of times, I think in the first tournament, as not even the randomizer tournament, the vanilla tournament that was a couple of years ago, and the two of us having quite the barn burners there. So very solid, very consistent play. He's been playing the randomizer almost since the beginning and has a great grasp of knowledge on it. So this is going to be another match that's going to be really close. Looking through their history, and TA's been pulling off a few wins lately, but the two of them have been pretty darn even back and forth going on there, and a lot of the races are decided within 4 minutes of each other, which in randomizer is you took the correct turn in level 9. So,
yeah, for sure. Or you found the sword a little bit faster, anything like that. So yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, be great match. Do not miss that one for sure. Next up, Bent Glass Tube and Z-Man 050778. Bent Glass Tube, he's been around for a while too. Does a lot of work for various randomizers. Aficionado of mini games. Had a win against Isolated 999 in the previous round. And let me see if I can track down his other one. Played against Mixkai 3 in the very first round and unfortunately took a loss there. And then Z-Man played against JSR in the last round. Yeah, and took a loss there. JSR being JSR. I hope you found your bomb, buddy. And then beat Mad Bomber XX in the first round. But I think overall, this is probably a pretty close pairing as well. Both these guys very competent at the game.
Oh, completely agreed. You've got, again, I've watched Z-Man a bit more than I've watched BGT, just from the fact, timing-wise, I think Z-Man hits some of the nightly races that I've been in. And, Z-Man's been coming along really well, getting much better on the combat side of things. Even the match against JSR there ended up being, it was 8-minute difference, but again, I think a decent portion of that one was JSR dug a dungeon that ended up having something. Z-Man made the gamble, went somewhere else, and it just came down to that in the end. So, as I said, BGT and Z-Man here both have potential, both have really good times that I've been seeing, and as I said, yet another match. I know we're saying it a lot. Yet another match that's going to be a really close one. It should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think once we get to like round 4, round 5 reveals, that's basically all you're going to say.
The bomb upgrades, JSR.
All right. Next up, Truant Gamer against Fury SK. Fury, another one of those guys that's in my chat a lot, and has we've had a lot of conversations about Zelda, and has his times have improved a lot, and I think one of those newer players that has come a long way in a short period of time, and has done a very good job at acclimating themselves to the randomizer. And Truant has been around for a really long time. Had a 57-50 last round. I mean, anytime you get a sub-hour in any seed, it doesn't matter. That's a heck of an accomplishment. So again, come a long way as far as their randomizer talent, and this should be a very good matchup. I'm looking forward to this one.
I completely agree. Fury, as I said, I've been seeing Fury around as well, coming along really nicely. It looks like it was like an hour 13 Fury had on round 2, or somewhere in that neighborhood, which is a really solid time. Most races that's going to put you dang near the top on getting a time like that. So that's a really solid time and coming along very well here. And strangely enough, these two have never actually played each other at all in SRL history. So this will be a true first between these two. But as I said, Truant Gamer has been putting solid times, and as you said, you get a sub-hour. That's pretty darn incredible on these flags. And the other race was also against JSR.
JSR.
And still pulled off like an hour 20 on that type of seed. So you're getting some really good times on both of these racers, and we've got a lot of potential here. I don't really think that I can even look at this matchup and say, either one of them is a favorite on this. So it should be another good one to watch.
Yeah, next up we have Zardia against the Alan Heffley. Zardiak. Wow, what a combination. Zardia, because I was reading, actually beat Adirondack Rick in the previous round. So, Rick, we just saw him put up a sub-hour time as well. So, again, Zardia had been around a really long time, heavily involved in Final Fantasy Randomizer right now, but has joined us back in the realm of Hyrule, and is no slouch and is a very good player at Zelda 1. I think probably a little bit rusty, but again, once that rust starts to get off, the talent really starts to pull through. And then, the Alan Heffley, I don't know when he started. Maybe you can tell us. I don't remember if he was back at the spring tournament last year or if he started in the previous tournament, but I know he's been around for a long time. And also has just done a really good job of improving. First round matchup was Crystal Saver. So, that's always fun. And, I don't know if you saw his matchup against Laura DeBeaver, but that was one of the worst seeds I have ever seen in existence. You had to get the raft deep out of a level to get to one, to get to the ladder, to get to the bow, which was covered in Wizrobes and Blue Land Mola. It was one of the nastiest things ever. And then level 9 was like the biggest troll I've ever seen. So despite the fact that says, nearly a 3-hour seed, that was ridiculously difficult. And so again, this should be a pretty good matchup, I think.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I was looking up the stats. They've actually only played 2 times, but one of those 2 times was back in April. So I know Alan has definitely been around for a while. Czar, I know, has definitely been around pretty much since the beginning. And Czar is one of those people who will come in with some of the most difficult combinations of flags out there and play, and typically tends to play glitchless when at least playing on the casual side of things. So these type of nightmare level seeds that he's used for practice. So we've got potential to, again, got a lot of potential there in terms of just the sheer difficulty that Zara plays on. So translating that to these types of flags may potentially be easier. Although, again, we've been seeing the enemy changes can cause some significant issues for players depending on where things come up. Alan has been playing, in this tournament. I'm looking back to see if I don't actually see Alan in the previous tournament, so I think this is Alan's first tournament with us. But so far in this tournament has had a couple of really good matches, and especially if that seed was as trolly as it sounds, and Alan was able to pull off the win on that. Definitely a good sign here. So I think this is going to be a good one. It may come down to how the combat ends up playing out and might give a slight edge to Czar, but I think that this has a lot of potential here to be a good one. I would not be surprised at all to see either one of these players take a win.
Yeah, and then Lori was also stating there was a blue dark nut spiral staircase that was required with no gear to get to the other segment of one of those things too. It was, if you have some time, it's worth going back and watching, just go play the seed. It was ridiculous. It was crazy. Next up, Gimpy 783 and Shaddy. Gimpy 783 I got to do both of his games. He had a ridiculous comeback against Your Majesty in the first game. He was 33 minutes behind going into 9, and then executed a ladder clip to get to Ganon and cut off 20 rooms that were required to get to a staircase. Was very surprised. I'd never seen him play before, and every time I watch him play, I'm just blown away by his skill. He did play you in the last one. You put up a 63, and I think he had some trouble finding the sword in that one. That kind of just set him behind, and he did forfeit, but he was doing all right once he found the sword for sure, and just chose not to play that one out. But he's got the skill set for sure. And then we look at Shaddy, who played against. Well, I just lost it. He played against Laurie DeBeaver in the first one. He put up a 75-51, so a 115, which is a great time. And then played against Crystal Saver in the last round and only lost by 7 minutes. Saver had a 75 and Shaddy had an 82. So clearly has got the skill set as well. So this is going to be, you may not know who these two people are, but this is a match that you don't want to miss.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Taking a look at this, again, I played Gimpy last time, and the main issue for Gimpy ended up being the fact that he apparently mismarked something on his map,
right,
which ended up resulting in, when he was trying to figure out things at the very end after I finished, he ended up, at that point exiting the race because, he just wasn't able to find one of those levels. Again, it came down to an early, where he and I were neck and neck. Just the white sword was located, the wooden sword was located up on Death Mountain. Next to level 9.
Oh, right.
And he got sniped a couple of times on the way up there. But as you pointed out, it definitely has the capability for screen scrolling down on, when he went up there the second time, didn't go through the grave, was able to screen scroll over the river and through the woods up to Ganon's house, where he was able to get the wood sword. And, very solid combat. Was watching very, again, really good player. I hadn't seen Gimpy play much prior to this, but has been doing absolutely great. And Shaddy as well, also been in a lot of the nightly matches. Doesn't look like they've played each other at this point, but as I said, this one could certainly go either way with the way matches are. And as I said, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see them both put up really good times on the seed when they get it.
Next up, Jam Evil versus Ryan 7. This is probably the first match I've seen that's a little bit in favor, and that would be of Jam Evil. Took a win his first round against Imasock. Again, very close match, only 6 minutes apart in that one, and then played against Random Effect and lost by only 3 minutes and some change there as well. And that was a really close game. Jam nearly came back on that one. His level 9s are just, a work of art. He seems to just understand exactly where to go every single time. Also, the winner of the previous tournament, and he was I think I beat him to go play Saver in the finals of the first tournament. So Jam has been around for a long time, knows his stuff, and is an extremely tough competitor. Ryan has been around for a very long time as well. He did take a win against Magius in the previous round, and he played against let's see here, Purity the Kitty in the first round and put up a 136.20, which is still a pretty good time. I just, he's not a bad player, but getting paired up against Jam is just a rough match.
Oh, Jam is absolutely a rough match. Jam actually knocked me out as well. I want to say both tournaments up to this point, Jam has knocked me out. Jam's play, especially once he finds everything and essentially goes into that blitzing style mentality, is, it's impossible to play against him because he just makes those decisions, plays really well. His combat's really on point, which is, as I said, he came into the game mostly playing Randomizer. He has a really solid vanilla time and hasn't played vanilla that much. That's one of the most amazing things about that. He, doesn't have a lot. He's probably one of the top 20 or 25 times, and has put in, I don't even think he's hit 1,000 attempts on the vanilla play. So his combat is amazing. His ability to keep track of things, I don't even know how much he does with tracking. I think he's told me in the past he uses, he does a lot of that type of stuff, mentally. So he's just got a great mind for it, great capabilities. Certainly a favorite to come through here. Ryan, I've seen play, in a number of seeds, certainly coming along. As you said, I think Jam's likely going to have the advantage on this round, but that's what we still play the matchups because there's still a good chance. I think Ryan's going to have a potential here to put a really good show together anyway, and I think it could easily go both ways. But
absolutely,
as I said, I put the lane leaning towards Jam.
Next up, RC Drone against Catastrophe 573. This one has potential to be crazy, I think. RC Drone shouldn't be a stranger to anybody. He's currently top on the SRL rankings. He took a win against Kingdoll, who again we were talking about is a really good consistent player in the first round, and then took a loss to Dracados, and that match was insane. It just RC did one or two minor things wrong, and Dracados took the advantage and was able to take out the win. But that one could have gone either way, and so he's in the 1-1 group, and it's going to be a tough matchup for Catastrophe. And I've talked about him last week. A lot of people probably don't know who this guy is, but when I started Randomizer, he was in the top 10. He is the old school of old school. Emerges out of the time chamber after 2 years, and he's starting to shake the rust off. He already has an 80-54, and in the first round, he played against Dragon Dark, and he did forfeit. And Dragon Dark had a 1 hour 5 second time on that one, so he blew through it. But Catastrophe wasn't really that far behind, and I think this will end up being a little bit in favor of RC Drone. But I think Catastrophe, if he has a good seed, could really take advantage and make this really close.
Oh, completely agreed. And as you said, Catastrophe was around a while ago. It comes down in this case to seeing if Catastrophe can, come back from there and be able to do it. He's been putting some good times together. Was able to put together against Dark in the second round last round a 1 hour 20-minute time. So again, a pretty good time on that seed. Playing, and again, we're playing against Drone here, where Drone is a really solid player. Will make the occasional gamble, so it may just be a case of if a gamble goes the wrong way, Catastrophe will certainly have a shot there. But as I said, Drone's play is amazing. I got really lucky in the first round of the first randomizer tournament. I got paired up against Drone and was able to get a win, even though Drone beat me into level 9 just because I took the correct turn. And
right.
Since then, Drone has been lights out. He tore through the elimination bracket of that, the bottom bracket of that tournament for quite some time. Pretty much, if he's in a multiple player race on on SRL, there he's likely to be one of the top 2 or 3, if not number 1 regularly. So he's an absolutely phenomenal player, and this is going to be a fun matchup to watch.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. Again, I think this is one that everybody should keep an eye on, because cool things can happen, and who knows? I wouldn't want either one of these guys in the 1 and 2 bracket either. So either way, that's going to be a tough matchup, because again, Catastrophe back in the day, he was really hard to beat, and he's I watched this last match, and he's really started to shake off the rust. So it'll be a good one. Next up is Kara Carnv versus Prez J Polk. This is probably another one I would put quite heavily in Kara Karn's favor. Prez has actually gotten much better at the game, though. Once he starts to... He's really good at the base game, right? He's so good at Zelda 1, so good at Zelda 2. It's just the randomizers have kind of thrown him for a loop sometimes as far as like routing and what to do as far as decision making. But he's getting better, and you can see that. And I hope that he had talked about this being his last randomizer tournament, and I hope that's not the case, because I think once he starts to get it a little bit more, he can have a lot of fun with it. I mean, he doesn't practice these; he just joins the tournament and plays. And so, if you take that into consideration, he's done an incredible job thus far. Karakern, though, has been around for a really long time. He played Dragon Dark in the last round, who again just smoked through the seed with the 6706, and he had a 133.42. I think Karakarn's been away for a while too. I haven't seen him around in a lot of races, but he took on TGE in the first race, right? And he got a 58.50. So again, we're talking about another person in the tournament with the sub-hour time. It's just incredible. And so I think this will be a tough matchup for Prez. But again, if Prez starts to get a little bit more grasp on the randomizer, anything could happen here.
Oh, absolutely. Prez, as you mentioned, has a really solid vanilla time for a while. I was hoping to catch him. He was like basically that benchmark I was trying to beat. And the fact that, he combat-wise may not be necessarily as fast as some of those other runners, but very clean combat. And when you watch him, he's getting those, forcing 10s, without even a problem, in terms of the combat side of things. So he's able to keep that count. He's able to fight well. As I said, it may have seemed sometimes a little bit slower, but he also necessarily wasn't playing on the hardest route necessarily. So, really solid vanilla player. He's played some of the randomizer plays throughs in the past for fun. So I think that's basically where he's going to be at on this point. As I said, I'm looking forward to this game continue to play. Hopefully, Karakharn has played through, been a really strong competitor in a number of the previous tournaments. Played Randomizer a lot, so. As you said, I think Karakharn's a favorite in this one, but Prez could easily pull out a run that, again with that vanilla skill there, could easily pull out a run that no one quote unquote sees coming, and make it a competitive racer.
Next up, Mixed Kai 3 against Bresticle, one of the guys in the 1-1 group you absolutely did not want to pull. Mixed Kai 3 took down BGT in the first round and had Chesterk in the second, who pulled out a 61.58. So another really good time there. A frequent of the Sunday races again, I believe, in that group, and has done really well there. But gets matched up against Bresticle, of all people, who lost to Jake Oper by a whole of 9 seconds in the first round, and then throws together a 56.58 in the second round.
Yeah, BT is a beast at this game. We'll jump around to other randomizers at time, but the vanilla skill that BT shows when playing this game, just in terms of the combat, is absolutely beautiful to watch. And the comeback that BT made there in his first match against Jake Hoper and falling just short. I mean, 9 seconds is an incredible difference between the two runners, where it could have easily gone either way, and was able to pull off the squeaked the loss there, but the second round then being able to get that. No one wanted to run into BT at 1-1, as you said, absolutely no one. And Kai has certainly been coming along here, but I think they'll be able to, they may have some trouble here against BT, because as I said, BT can be the absolute beast there. As I think BT is going to take that one, but it could be a fun one, but I think BT is going to have that one reasonably solidly.
Next up, Skybills versus Hippoot. Again, Skybill's another one of those people that if you don't know who she is, you probably haven't been around Zelda Randomizer very long. She runs the nightly races and has gotten heavily involved in the community that way. Put up some very solid times every single time that she races. She unfortunately lost last round to Slidic, who we'll talk about a little bit later. Another one of those guys who kind of popped up for tournaments and just does really, really well. And played against, I believe it was Tetra in the first round, and had a 112, so a really solid time there. And then the opponent there, Hippoot, haven't seen them play in any of the nightly races or anything like that, but I've seen them. I've seen their tournament races, and the skill set's definitely there. Lost to Zeb Gedney by 3 minutes in the first round, which is a really close race. And Zeb is no slouch at all. And then took down Sharky 21.07 in the previous round and had a 144 there. I didn't catch that race, but I think this is probably favored a little bit in Skybill's. Her skill level in the randomizer has skyrocketed since the Random Percent tournament. And because I took a break after the Random Percent tournament, and so all these new people have started playing, and all these people that were playing before, I came back and I was really amazed. And Skybill's is one of those ones that really, really shocked me at how much better she'd gotten at the game. So I think it's going to be a difficult matchup for Hippoot, but as we always say, it's the randomizer; anything can happen.
Agreed. I mean, Sky, has had a really solid matchup in round 1 there. Round 2, played against, as you said, Slidic, and the main issue on that one was that she dug through an incredibly large level 6 to discover that the Triforce was one of the top 4 rooms, and in a heavy Wizrobe dungeon required clearing 6 Wizrobes, and you cleared that 6 Wizrobe room and walked through and discovered a shutter room.
Nice.
Not a shutter room, a ladder room. And therefore ended up having to leave, found the level with the ladder late, and it led to basically, again, that time commitment going through level 6 there just ended up hurting her. But overall, she has an amazing ability, especially at level 9. I have noticed, there are times where she will go into level 9, sometimes a couple minutes after other people, and she just flies through there in the late game. She is absolutely amazing at that point. So I think there's a lot of potential. I haven't really seen Hippoot's matches up to this point, but, with the times that we're seeing, I definitely think there's potential there for some good action. I think I agree with you. I think Sky has the potential of being the favorite. They actually have never actually played each other. so I don't even have history to lean back on and say that one person's won a few times more than the other. But as I said, it should be a really good matchup here. Should be a lot of fun.
Next up, Yeocrast versus Buzz Thunder. Yeocrast, I apologize. I haven't seen them around a lot. They may be in the Sunday races, and somebody in chat can let me know, or maybe you can, Fred. Played against Steerwolf last round, and unfortunately took a loss there. But played in Pain Train, which we were talking about earlier, and took that win by 37 seconds. So that was a 1:20.06, which is a really good time. And I've seen them around a little bit, and they seem to do pretty well. I've dropped in on their stream and such, and seem to do very well. And then there's Buzz Thunder on the other side, who has been around for a while in the Zelda 1 community. Jumped over to the Zelda 2 randomizer train for a while and kind of came back. And as you can see, the rust is starting to fall off. His first round match was against K-Mac. K-Mac again, just one of those guys who can pick up any game, it seems like, and just crush it. Was really close there. He had a forfeit time, but that was because he was getting prepped for a Z2 race. He was right behind K-Mac, making a heavy, heavy comeback, and nearly got there. He just died on Ganon. If he hadn't, the race would have been within a minute and a half. So was very close to beating K-Mac, and then took on Wing Zyre in the previous matchup there. And Wing Zyre was another one of those guys who came in and did really well in this last spring tournament. And Buzz put up a 117, which is a really great time. So this should be a really good matchup to watch.
I'll completely agree there. As you said, I haven't seen Yeocrast play a lot. I know that these two have actually never crossed paths on the Zelda 1 randomizer front. Buzz Thunder, as you mentioned, had some really good times, and the fact that Buzz has become so involved with Z2, there's a mindset that you get, and once you start playing one of these randomizers, pretty much that mindset tends to carry through all the different randomizers in terms of, okay, this is the type of attacking I do, this is the gambles to make, this is the times where I should run into stick with something and go with it. And Buzz's skills have been translating back on that front, and it's looking really solid so far. And as I said, I haven't really seen Yeocrast play much, but from the times that we're seeing up there and how things are going, I think this could be a really fun one to keep an eye on. And as you said, I think this could easily be a very close race.
Next up, we have Purity the Kitty versus Janth. Purity, newer to the randomizer community, but has absolutely put in all sorts of time, asked questions all the time about the randomizer, and has definitely steadily improved. Had Crimson Avix in the previous round. Always a tough matchup to play against Crimson, and won their first match against Ryan 7 with a 1:12.32, so a fantastic time there. And then I lost my place. Janth, who's been around, I believe, since nearly the beginning, a long time, has been around, and won their first round matchup against Sharky 2107, and then had K-Mac in the last round. So really, again, another tough matchup there. I think this one has the potential to be very close.
Oh, completely agreed. I mean, again, looking at the time, Purity has been around in Z1 here for a bit longer. Not necessarily active in terms of playing in races, but has certainly been involved for quite some time. I've had a number of discussions with Purity about various things as part of the development process was going on early in the day. So, definite knowledge, the knowledge base that Purity has is great. And we're seeing in these races that Purity does also have, a good skill set there with the times on the races that we've been seeing up to this point. Janth also, again, I haven't seen that a ton there, but also we've been seeing some really good times as well. And the two of them, if you look at the head-to-head, I think they've actually only played twice up to this point, but the times are reasonably close. It looks like it's slightly in the favor of Purity if you go just on those two races, but two races is a tiny sample size, so I still don't know if you can necessarily trust the a two race window there. But either way, this matchup definitely has some potential. Both of them have been improving considerably, and even it's been a bit of time since that second, those two races. So I think it's got a lot of fun here coming up.
Next up, Jay Coper versus Gary and Old Wolf. Jay Coper, arguably the hardest schedule to date. beat Bresticle by 9 seconds in the first round, and then draws amazing Ampharos and takes a loss by 45 seconds in the second round due to a little bit. I mean, Ampharos just had a really good 9 and kind of came back on that one. And again, just he's heavily involved in the randomizer community. Jay Coper, one of those guys that not just Zelda randomizer, but the randomizer community. He's involved in Dragon Warrior, Final Fantasy, Zelda 2, Zelda 1. He's involved in all of them. He's the one who started Randomizer Central, I believe, to kind of give a central hub for everybody. So if you haven't seen him, go check him out, especially when he plays GeoGuessr. It's a lot of fun. And then we've got Gary and Old Wolf, which is a newer player. So kind of a tough matchup for him, I think, if we're being honest. Took a win against Insult last round with a time of 1:16.53, which is a really good time. I've watched again some of his races outside of the tournament. And has put up really good times and has definitely improved. And he had Chest Jerk in the first round, which we'll get to Chest Jerk when we get there. But Chest Jerk, again, another one of those people who's really improved and is an extremely tough opponent. So while I think this is definitely in favor of Jay Coper, Gary, if it's one of those rough seeds and Jay Coper takes a wrong turn and Garion doesn't, there is potential there.
Oh, completely agreed. As you said, Jay Coper is incredibly solid times. He's also had a really tough schedule up to this point, so he could very easily be a 2-0, and again, it would also be a schedule that you don't want to see. You don't want to see him at all in any as an opponent ever anywhere. And the fact that he ended up at a 2-0, he's at 1-1 right now. It's just a testament to the power of the opponents that he's had up to this point. Jay Coper has been playing really well, and Gary, and as I said, is definitely a newer player. I think this matchup is going to go heavily on the side of Jay Coper. Give him I don't want to say a break, because in this game you can't have a break, but I think this may be a slightly easier matchup for Jay Coper on that side of things, especially compared to the level of competition he's had in the past. But Garion, with the times Garion's been putting up, you could easily see at least a competitive match that gets into level 9, which could go one way or the other. So hopefully we'll see something like that going on for this match.
All right, next up we have got Zep Gedney versus Matrick. I think this is going to be another really good one. Matrick took a loss in the first round by a minute 1 or a minute 2 against Zoigman, who had a heck of a comeback. That was a really crazy seed where Matrick had some bomb trouble at 9 trying to find the silvers, and Zoigman just kind of went in and found the path, which I think that's happened to anybody in a race before. Somebody just finds the path and you're mad at 9 for a day, and you do a salty run back and do better. But very close matchup there. And then he took a win against a New York Rambler in the second round. And then Zep Gedney took a loss to Amazing Toaster last round by just a little under 3 minutes. And Toaster, again, no slouch. So that was another one of those extremely good matches last round that you definitely want to go check out if you get the opportunity. And then he played against Hippoot in the first round and took a win there again by 3 minutes. I think this one should be extremely close. Matrick does a lot of stuff offline with Dragon Dart. Well, not outside of the casual race area that we have. Does a lot of seeds online with just Dragon Dart, and they race all the time. And then Zep Gedney hasn't had the opportunity to race as much recently, but has definitely put in quite a few races. I think this will be pretty close.
Well, this one definitely got potential to be close. As I said, Matrick, as you mentioned, Matrick does race a lot offline with Dragon Dark and some of the others there. Can put together really close time, really solid times. I remember in the first randomizer tourney, which was the double elimination tourney, he, we ended up with not having a lot of knowledge on him. He ended up being, a high seed, high numbered seed, and then ran through that tournament for a while there, pulling off a number of quote-unquote upsets, which was just because, again, of the seeding that he got in the end. But, he is a really solid player, did some routing with DD at one point there to try to improve even the vanilla game. And, as I said, just really solid. These two actually have faced each other twice head-to-head, and it's 1-1.
Nice.
In the head-to-head. So these two have been, they've got a solid history against each other. Zeb's been playing for a very long time, has been putting really consistent times in as well. I mean, if I was forced to pick, I'm going to guess Matrick on this one, but I don't, that's just more of a gut feeling. I think that one is very easily both of them in level 9 and coming down to who finds Ganon first on that seat. It's going to be a really fun one.
Or who grabs the magic sword, right?
Oh, that too. Yes.
Next up, we have Insult against Liquid Husband. Insult, newer to the randomizer, but has been around for a long time in people's chats who have been playing the randomizer. So while maybe new to physically doing it, mentally the information is there, right? He's commented, he's understood what's going on with the randomizer itself, and took a really close loss to Pan in the first round by just over 2 minutes. And then in the second round, ended up taking a loss to actually Gary and Oldwolf, who we were just talking about. So the times are definitely there. I mean, that last one was an hour 25, and Gary put up a 1:16. So the times are definitely there, and has definitely taken the mental data and put it into the physical aspect very easily. Versus Liquid Husband, which again, if you don't know who Liquid is, you're not paying attention in chat. Took out J-Lo last round by 5 minutes and had the rough matchup of Error 72 in the first round, which, that he's a tough guy to beat no matter what. He's another one of those guys that picks up a game and he's just good at it. I think overall this should be a really good matchup.
I definitely think it has potential. I mean, Liquid Husband, his matchup in J-Lo in round 2 there. If you want to watch a seed that is apparently an incredibly difficult seed in terms of getting going on it, go back and rewatch the highlight of that one, because those two put up, as I said, apparently the seed there was incredibly tough, and that's part of the reason that seed took both of them as long as it did. Liquid Husband's definitely been paying attention a lot to the game, definitely has that knowledge base for this. Insult, as you were saying as well, also has that knowledge base, has been putting some good times up as well here in the tournament. So I think this could potentially go either way. I think this will be a fun one to keep an eye on to watch.
Next up, we have Slidic versus Zeugman. I think this one is one of our pair up matches, because it looks like Slidic has won both of his matches versus Skybill and Lady Prismillion with 106 and a 109. So Slidic, we were talking about him a little bit earlier. Another one of those people who just kind of seems to pop up for the tournaments and just does really, really well. Played a lot earlier, like last year, during that time and before Shapes, had a lot more time investment then, and again, just showed up for this tournament and has kind of just knocked it out of the park so far, is what it looks like. And then Zeugman took, again, we were talking about that win against Matrick in the first round by 1:02, and then got paired up against Dig Shake in the second round, who knocked out with a 106, and he had like a 53 Dig Shake in his first round, which is the fastest of the tournament so far, I believe. So a heck of a tough, difficult opponent there, and so Zeugman is 1-1 and did get paired up against a 2-0. I would probably, again, give this, just based off the times and my knowledge of how well Slidic plays, him a bit of advantage. But Zeugman, again, no slouch. He's in the races with Penolf all the time. He's one of our European brethren, and he does really good as well.
Oh, completely agreed. I mean, as I said, going back to Slidic, as you said, was playing the game a bit more about a year ago, somewhere around there, a bit pre-Shapes. I remember seeing Slidic pop up a lot during team races. And it almost felt like any race that Slidic was involved in, especially with the team races, bam, they're first place. And even on the individual matches, Slidic was playing incredibly well, is always a threat. And we've already seen that so far in the first 2 matches in this tournament. And Zeugman as well plays really well, as you mentioned, has played a lot more during the day. These two have never actually played each other on the SRL side of things, but you've got a really good, you got a lot of potential here. I think I agree with you. Slidic's probably got the edge just based on what we've seen up to this point, but again, this one could very easily come into a level 9 scenario where if Zeugman comes in and takes the right couple of turns, you could easily see Zeugman pull it off. So it's gonna be that'll definitely be a fun one to watch. With the Swiss format, you will typically you play against people at the same record. when you have an odd number of people at a record, someone gets to play up or down as a result. And in this case, Slidic drew the short straw and is playing down to the 1-1. But this is Oigman's another 1-1 who I see play a lot, and definitely would be afraid to be playing against him.
Next up, we have Lady Prismillion versus Winged Zyre. This is one of our 0-2 matchups. Lady Prismillion, let's take a look here if I can get back to where I was here. Played against Tetra in the first round and actually played against Slidic in the first. So again, we were just talking about Slidic, who had a 106, and Lady Prismillion put up a 128 in that seed. So a really good time, and then took a loss to Tetra by roughly 20 minutes in the second round. I believe part of the Sunday morning crew. I'm honestly not sure. I'm not familiar. I haven't had the opportunity to play with them yet. And then Wing Zyre, who was in the spring tournament last year, and is kind of not trying to knock off the rust a little bit, I think. But did a really good job in that tournament. It has some really tough matchups. Had the Sea Wolf in the first round, who is in all of the nightly races pretty much and plays all the time. So very practiced. And then Buzz Thunder in the second round, who again is a very experienced player. I don't know. What do you think about this one, Fred?
I think it's gonna be an interesting one. I think Zyre's been playing a little bit longer. I'm looking through my history of these two, and I'm right now not seeing a lot of matches for Lady. I mean, Lady has finished all 3 of the matches that they played in up to this point. So, looking at the times for these two, I think I'd give a slight edge to Zyre on the gameplay side of things. But they both have been playing a bit. They're definitely picking it up. Zyre's been putting together, looking at this list, a bunch of solid times on tournament plays, various seeds that I'm seeing here. So I think this has potential to be a close one. As I said, I'd give slight edge to Zyre, but I would not be surprised at all if we see Lady raising their hand for victory.
Next up, JLo7 versus Sharky 2107. JLo7 been around for a long time. I've been playing intermittent randomizer races with them for years now. Let's see, I believe it was Cantaloupe Me in the first round. What a tough draw. Who had a 82-31, so a 122-31. So I'm assuming probably a bit of a rough seed. Again, we were talking about how Kant and his skill with the game. J-Lo took a forfeit there, so unfortunately not a time comparison. But then we were talking about the seed where he lost to Liquid Husband by 5 minutes and how rough that seed was. So taking that into comparison, again, J-Lo been around a long time, has put in a lot of practice and knows how to play the randomizer. And while maybe not in the top tier, is always very consistent with their play. And then we got Sharky 2107, who is one of our newer players. It pulled Hippoot and Janth in the second and first round, and took a forfeit in both of those. So I'm not quite sure how the time comparison goes. But Sharky's been doing some commentary and stuff for us as well, and clearly has good game knowledge. So this should be a pretty good race.
Oh, definitely! It definitely has potential to be a lot of fun here. They both got really good game knowledge. JLo has actually been around Zelda Randomizer, I want to say, literally the first set of beta seeds. When I first released that, he was one of the very first testers. He's been great throughout the years. He actually typically plays without any of the, the clips. He was playing through with a lot of the testing, with no glitches whatsoever, which actually was really valuable for me because I remember at least a couple of cases of a Dig Dogger blocking a flute that he was able to discover that most of us didn't because we just clipped through the diamond staircase.
Right.
And he ended up saying, "Oh, yeah, I can't get in there." And so it ended up being really valuable for us. He's got a lot of knowledge of the game. He's well practiced. As I said, as you were mentioning, I haven't seen Sharky a lot, but having heard the commentary, definitely got a lot of good knowledge there. So this should be another really fun one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, Raikou Writer saying in chat that Hippoot and Sharky actually learned to play the game from him at SGDQ 2017. So fairly recent, but again, for as new as they are, they're both doing very well. Next up, Jake Allen 2 against Wolfman 2000. Let's see, Jake Allen here has forfeited in both games No, wait, no. He did finish the first one. I'm sorry, I'm reading it wrong. Cavan 856, he lost by about 20 minutes. And then Truant Gamer had that 57.50, and he forfeited. Man, again, 57.50, such a crazy time. There was a race that I was in that, I was one of those late night races that Penelf and some others were in, but it was one of those seeds that I finished in about an hour and 25 minutes. Everything was required. You needed bow, power bracelet, recorder, raft. You needed absolutely everything, and he finished 15 minutes after me. So definitely has the skill set there to do very well, and I don't know that these times are really showing the true talent there. And then we have Wolfman 2000, who I think has probably got, again, one of the roughest set of draw pairings in the tournament. First round against Unos with probably one of the worst seeds that any of us have seen. That was a 97-29 by Unos. I had played that seed. That seed was horrible. It was a 6 blue Wizrobe room into a Shutter Door NSU with 6 blue Wizrobes, and the ladder was past that. So it was just one of those seeds that was brutal. And then gets paired up against Breasticle, who pulls out a 56-58 in the next round. So just rough pairings. I think overall, this is actually going to be a very close matchup. Wolfman has shown 86-52 in that one against BT, which is a very good time. And then again, it's really hard to gauge. I don't blame Wolfman for forfeiting in the one against Unos, because who wants to bang their head against that, when it's already over. But I think this has a potential to be a very close race.
Oh, it definitely does. I mean, going back to that seed you were mentioning, not only did you have to go through that NSU room of 6 blue Wizrobes to get to the ladder, you had to come back to that room and fight them again to get the Triforce.
The Y-Force. I avoided the Y-Force, but you still had to clear it again. So it was just as bad anyway.
Yeah, it was a terrible combat seed. I mean, to put it in perspective, Unos had to go buy a blue ring. Those of you listening at home, that's just how nasty that seed was. So you can, I think 90% of players would have eventually just screamed and run away, pulling their hair out at that seed. So, the skill level on both of these players is clearly there. They haven't played each other yet, but, as I said, looking at the times that I'm seeing on their play, we're seeing some pretty good times here. And, just scanning down the list, it could easily swing either way. I think it's potential to be a really close race, and could be potentially a lot of fun to watch.
Next up, Isolated 999 and Dark Falls 1983. Everybody should know who these guys are. They do lots of commentary for the randomizer. Dark Falls does a lot of tracking as well. Isolated has lost to BGT and Dr. J PhD, which again are both two people who have been around for a really long time. And the one against BGT was really close. It was only about 3 minutes apart. I think probably some rough seeds. I know Isolated 999, Aloza, for those of you who know them in SRL, is still a very good randomizer player. I think just had a couple of tough breaks in these seeds, and very well could be 1-1 or 2-0. And then Dark Falls has played against Amazing Ampharos, who put up a 112, and Catastrophe, who again we were talking about before, is just one of those guys that once he knocks the rust off, has the base skill set there. And when you learn Zelda 1, it doesn't ever go away. It's just one of those things that kind of sticks with you. And so two very rough matchups. And again, I think really close on the Catastrophe matchup, and then pulling AA still has the potential to have been 1-1. This should be a good match, I think.
Oh, completely agreed. I mean, Dark Falls has been picking things up, reasonably recently. I feel like, spent a lot of time in the chat watching players, has been doing a ton of great commentary on that side of things. So is Isolated. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking Isolated at all. Isolated has done beautiful commentary as well. They're both in great shape on that side. So they both have the knowledge of this. It's just a matter of, playing through these seeds and beating things as quickly as they can. They're both doing really good times. For the races that they've been doing. So with the combat improvements they've been having, I think this one has a lot of potential there to be a very close race at the end.
Next up, we have Raikou Rider and Magius. Raikou Rider, probably the guy in the O2 bracket that you didn't want to draw. He's been matched up against Shiner CCC, who took a first round victory there, and then got TA in the second round, who put up a 58-28. There is nobody who wants to play against TA. and just had an unfortunate circumstance to end up in the 0-2 bracket. And Magius has had to play against Ryan Seven, who took their victory there, and Crimson Avix in the first round. I think this is probably heavily favored for Raikou. I know Magius is one of our newer players. I've caught a few of the races and definitely has been improving, but Raikou been around for a while, and I think is out for blood after 2 losses.
Yeah, after the pairings that Raikou's had at this point, this is one of those cases where, after, let's say, 5 rounds, Swiss tends to even out, but in those first couple of rounds, in a regular, seeded format, you would almost never see Raikou at 0-2 at this point because Raikou, would have been ended up in one of those top seeds with the level of play that he has. He's very solid play, and certainly would not be an 0-2 at this point, but thanks to the fun of Swiss, you're going to get that happening. But over time, people tend to gravitate towards their levels, and Magius is definitely new to Zelda Randomizer, picked it up, has been playing in a bunch of the other tournaments, Link to the Past tournament, the I want to say FF1 Rando as well, a couple of other ones, Mystic Quest. So, has been playing a lot of different games there, and has picked up Zelda 1 here to play through on these couple, and I think it's going to be a really tough matchup for Magius here, but hopefully it'll be a good seed there. Magius will be able to put on a good showing during that match.
For sure. Next up, Ninja Clader against Lori DeBeaver. This one I think has the potential to be a really good matchup as well. Ninja Clader took a loss to Sis Crusher in the second round and was paired up against Paratroopa, who threw down a 1-14 in the first round. We were talking about Paratroopa and both Sis Crusher, very, very good players. And Ninja Clader finished, it was like 25 minutes after Sis Crusher, and I didn't catch either of those seeds, so I apologize. So if anybody's got some knowledge, please feel free to put that in chat. And then Lori DeBeaver played against the Alan Heffley in that absolute debacle of a seed that we were talking about earlier. Just probably one of the craziest seeds I've ever seen. And then had Shaddy in the first round, who had that 115. So overall, I think this is going to be a really close match. I think both play in the Sunday matches, so there might be some head-to-head data there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. As I said, I'm trying to find right now Claire's SRL name to be able to run a comparison on the two, but I know these two seem to know each other pretty well from various interactions I've seen on them, and I think skill level wise, from what we've been seeing at this point, they do definitely have good potential here to have a close race. I think this is going to be a fun one to watch in terms of the play. As I said, I don't have Claire's SRL name right now to be able to pull up the exact comparison. Once I find it, I'll chime in with that later on, but this could definitely be a fun one.
Next up, CCX Cyberchow X versus Mad Bomber XX. It's the battle of the X's. Cyberchow, he's been around for a while. He did some commentating in our Random Percent tournament and this one as well. Kind of picked the game up after that. His first actual race was against me in the first round. Don't want to toot my own horn, but that's kind of a tough matchup. And then pulled out King Doll in the second round, who again is another very tough matchup. And that seed that we had the first round, that was another one of those seeds. It wasn't as bad as the Unos Wolfman one, but you did have to go through a pointless moat room in 4 through a bomb wall, and it had 6 blue Wizrobes, and there wasn't really a ring available. So it was a rough seed for sure. And he did finish that one out. So very much props to him. And then Mad Bomber X, who has actually started dropping by my chat as well, and I started asking a lot of questions, and you can see the improvement. Played against Fury SK, who has, again, been another one of those people who has very steadily improved. And then Z-Man in the first round, who, we had talked about before, has been around for a while and is a very competent player. I think overall, this is actually going to be a really good matchup.
Oh, I definitely agree with that. We don't have any head-to-heads yet on these two, but I think Mad Bomber looks like, from the stats I'm seeing, probably just started up around the time this tournament started. In terms of playing on SRL, CCX has been around, as you said, since the last couple of tournaments. Hadn't really, I don't think it played much in the races, at least prior to the start of this tournament. But had been seeing all everything had been happening since the last tournament. So this match definitely has potential. Just jumping back really quickly to the last match, thanks to Krim and Lori for getting the correct SRL names. It's currently 3-1 between Lori and Claire there. So that matchup still, again, based on the head-to-head, has a lot of potential there. Come back to CCX and Mad Bomber, we've got, as I said, no matches between them up to this point, but from the times we've been seeing between these two, with the fun that they've been having so far in this tournament, this has definite could go either way. I don't really think I can call this one way or the other.
And next up, we have Viknin versus Lord of the Sense. Viknin, again, another one of our European brethren. He's been around for a while, too, if I remember right. Quite a while. Usually only participates, in the races, I think, that Pan puts together, and generally in just in the tournaments. But a pretty good player. The very first round, I believe, pulled none other than Random Effect himself. Let me double-check that to make sure I'm getting that right. Random Effect, who put up a 106.57. And Viknin finished with a 103.28. So, again, Random Effect, he went 4-0 in the last tournament. He's top 3 right now. He's ridiculous. He's very good at the game. And then, unfortunately, took a loss to Imasak in the last round in a very rough seed. Again, it was one of those things where they kind of scheduled that it was an awkward time for both of them. And I think Viknin said that he wasn't feeling the best. And, kind of just, there was a hint at the beginning of level 9 that said the silvers were elsewhere, and he thought he had the silver arrows, and went through level 9, found Ganon, took him down, and realized he didn't, and kind of had to backtrack. And so it was kind of a rough ending for both of them, and Sok ended up taking the win at the end of that. But Viknin very well could be 2-0 right now. And then on the other side, we have Lord of the Synth, who has played Meg Mac Attack, and in the first round had Zarnax, who had a 107.18. So Zarnax a very tough matchup, and again we talk about Meg, who's put in a lot of practice on the Sunday morning races. So rough matchups for him. And I know Lord of the Synth has been around for a long time over in Jake Hoper's chat. So this is probably a little bit favored, I would say, on Viknin's side, but it does have the potential to be a really close race.
Yeah, it definitely does. Viknin, as you were saying, tends to, I see Viknin, wrestle. Had too much Survivor Series on my head. Has been, playing a lot more with the French races. I remember seeing Viknin play back at the French Zeldathon when Zelda Randomizer closed that one out, and Viknin ended up winning the race there. Out of the 3 competitors that were there, it was Viknin, Penulf, and Zelda Maniac who were in that match, and Viknin won. So Viknin is a very solid player, as we're seeing here, and Lord of the Synth is definitely an upcoming player. Again, probably slight edge to Viknin here, but I'm looking forward to seeing this matchup, and I think Lord of the Synth could definitely surprise us and make this one a really close matchup.
Next up, we have Malagord against Epic Yoshi 64. This should definitely be, I think, an interesting match. Malagord got Adirondack Rick in just the match right before this, where Rick threw up a 58.04. And then Malagord, he didn't get his sword until after an hour and still finished it out at 140.31. So taking the fact into account that you didn't get a sword until that late, that's a really phenomenal time. And then the first round had Jay Clastic, who put up a 118. So, kind of a rough set of matches there for him. And then, Epic Yoshi 64 started, it was another one of those ones that started in the random percent tournament. It had an extremely rough first match, kind of came in, had no idea what to expect and wasn't tracking. And I think finished in like 6 hours, but they finished. And then since then has taken the time to ask questions and learn. And that's one of the most important things with the randomizer when you're new to it is especially, and I don't know that he was familiar with Zelda 1 either. So, taking the time to learn and start to understand what you're playing. And unfortunately took a loss to both Duke Firebird and Zarby 89. But this should be a good matchup. I mean, from previous experience and how well Malagord, came back in that last seed after fighting the Wood Sword, I think it's probably in his favor. But, Epic Yoshi could surprise.
I definitely agree with that. Malagord, as you mentioned, played that last seed, got a number of different Triforces using Wand only, which is pretty darn awesome considering the fact that, some of those rooms had Wizrobe. The Wizrobes weren't on the overworld that seed, right. So there were definitely dungeons with Wizrobes in there, and he was able to navigate through really well. And once he got the wood sword and then the magical sword before going into level 9, then the gameplay jumped up really well. So I think there's a lot of talent there. Epic Yoshi's definitely been learning and practicing. So been seeing significant improvement in play since Epic joined that first random percent tournament. So it definitely could be a fun match. Malagord, I'm going to say, has a slight edge, but again, that's why we play the races, because it could definitely be a close one.
All right, next up we have got New York Rambler versus Javeth. New York Rambler, one of our newer players, has done a lot of commentary and stuff for us too, so much appreciated there. Has played only against Matrick, got a bye in the first round, and then get paired up against Matrick, who is kind of hot off the heels of I think, did he win the first round? I don't remember. Look. No, he lost that first round. That's right. It was a 102 difference. It's kind of hot off that loss and came back and took down New York Rambler. And then we have Javeth on the other side, who had Theorwolf the first round and then Impain Train the second. And Javeth, another one of those people, again, who's been around for a really long time. I think it might be in favor of Javeth, but Rambler has shown a lot of promise.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is a case of Javeth has been around, participated even back at the release race back on Pi Day of 2015 there, when Randomizer was first released. He's been playing the game now for quite some time. Has definitely been putting practice in and definitely improving quite a bit. New York Rambler has been, as you said, newer to Randomizer, but has picked it up really well, really quickly. And I think this matchup's going to be a fun one to see. We haven't had any head-to-head between these two up to this point, but looking at just some of the times as I'm glancing through, both of them appear to be in the SRL times reasonably close in terms of the time frames, at least on recent races. So very good potential here for a really good match.
Next up, Sidariel versus Theorwolf. Both are 2-0, but man, that's a rough 2-0 pull.
Yeah.
Sidariel has taken down Zarnax 42 in the second round. First round, played against Meg Macattack. I mean, I've seen the matches. There's skill there for sure. But Theorwolf, man, talking about Theorwolf just a little bit, one of those people that I first saw up in chat in the random percent tournament. I take a break and Theorwolf's top 5 on the leaderboards, right? I entered a race and then I lost, and I'm like, who is this person? Like, what's going on? Put up a 105 and a 108 in the previous 2 rounds. Definitely a tough draw. Sometimes Theorwolf falters a little bit if there's, find the bomb hole, which I think is everybody's problem sometimes with shapes.
Oh, yeah.
So there is the potential there, but I think this is definitely in Theorwolf's favor.
I think it's like, I mean, if you look at the head-to-head, I mean, you think that maybe looking at things head-to-head, they've played 2 matchups and it's 1-1 right now. So, again, Theorwolf has been amazing with the level of play, top 3 competitor regularly on the races, if not a favorite to win any given race when they walk into it. Sidariel has also been putting along some really good times as things have been continuing here, and we've got a lot of potential here. I think this could be a fun one. As you said, maybe a slight edge to Theorwolf, but looking at the data here, we could easily swing either way.
Now things get a bit interesting. We have Fred Coughlin versus Crimson Avix. I don't know who either of those people are. Do you have some insight?
I'm terrified beyond the capacity of rational thought.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about Fred. You're obviously the creator, but you're so good at this game. You've taken down a multitude of people, and you always go far in these tournaments. You took down Jake Hoper and BT in the first tournament. You took down Jake Hoper in the second tournament. Crimson Avix went 4-0 in the last tournament. This is going to be a really, really good matchup. There's not a whole lot to say. Both of these guys play all the time. They're both extremely good, and if you miss this match, you should definitely go watch the VOD.
Oh, completely agree. As much as I'm completely scared of this one. It has a lot of potential here. I'm trying to pull up the stats. We apparently had one race that came in where both of us had to forfeit for some reason, and therefore it was throwing an error in my analysis here. But taking that away, Krim has basically matured over I feel like the past few months has been incredible in terms of how his skill level has improved over these races. Um, he is clearly now a favorite on any given night. And I've said that about a bunch of other people, but it's definitely true here. He has learned the game really well. A lot of you will have seen some of his work. He's done some of the custom sprites for various people that you see in some of their seeds. He, is basically one of the admins helping to run this tournament, and he just has a great knowledge of this game, is incredibly competitive. You're looking at some of our past few times here. I'm looking at the past 5 to 6 races here, and I'm seeing 3 of those races where the difference in our times was under a minute. Actually,
Wow.
under 30 seconds on those. So this is an incredibly tough battle here. Krim, as I said, has just flat out done a ton of great learning on this game, and he understands this game just about as well as anyone out there, and he's definitely a favorite. He was one of the people to go 4-0 during the random percent tournament. He and I actually met up during the bracket round of that. I got lucky enough to pull off the win during that bracket round, but it could have easily gone either way. And I think that this is going to be a really tough matchup. And as I said, I'm definitely a little bit scared of that.
Yes, Crimson, you have a tough task ahead of you, that's for sure. In both aspects. Who talks about you and taking down Fred? Next up, again, not taking the foot off the accelerator, we have JSR2 Gamers against Amazing Ampharos.
Gosh.
Man, AA took down Dark Falls in that first one, which we were talking about. Dark Falls is definitely not a slouch. And Jake Hoper by 45 seconds last round. And, JSR took down Fury and Z-Man, who are both very good players. And, we played with JSR a lot. JSR's motto is never first, always second. But he's proven that wrong twice now and has moved on to the 2-0 group and has got quite the clash here with AA.
Yeah, I mean, the two of them are just, both really solid players. JSR, pretty much anything he picks up can be, he's amazing at. Same thing with AA. AA just has this knowledge of the game. Like, he's not a player who does, screen scrolls on the overworld necessarily. Tends to play the game a little bit more on the other side, but he makes up for that game in terms of analytical knowledge. He knows, what when you go into dungeons, what to fight, what not to fight. He knows how to play his odds really well. He's really good on the fly at coming up with decisions as to what he needs to do. Head-to-head, these guys have played 18 times. Right now it's in the favor of AA 12-6, but looking over the stats that I'm seeing, if you look at more recent matches, it's been basically 50-50. That, it was that beginning portion there where AA got a lot of his edge. So this was going to be another one of those matchups. It's going to be an absolutely great one to watch. Both of these players are incredibly high level of skill. I don't really think you can pick one person more confidently than the other there.
No, this is a coin toss, I think. And like you were saying, AA is, for what he doesn't do as far as, technical stuff like clips and scrolls, he absolutely makes up for it in routing and combat efficiency. Yeah. And, JSR, he's one of those guys who contributed it to like the 100% route, has put in a lot of time into learning any percent. He's got a sub 30 time, very good at combat too. And so I always like watching AA in particular, because especially against other really high level opponents, because it's amazing how he always can keep up without doing clips and such. And it's so cool to watch. And so this is one that you do not want to miss.
Yeah, you will not want to miss this match. This is going to be a really good match. Again, high-level combat on both sides, high-level decision-making. It will be a lot of fun. And, as you were saying, even with, the fact that AA doesn't necessarily take advantage of some of those glitches, he doesn't need to. He's able to really make it an incredibly good match to take in here.
Next up, man, we're just going 0 to 90. Random effect against Unos. Like, man, Unos had Paratroopa last round. Unos had that crazy seed that was about an hour and a half, which again, he had to go out and buy a blue ring and deal with blue wizards. Then throws up a 1-0, basically an hour 3 minutes in the next round against Paratroopa, who again is a very good player. And then Random Effect had Viknin in the first round, and then took down Jam Evil in the second round, which is, we talked about him earlier. He's so good at the game too. Man, I don't know. You could flip a coin about 60 times, and I still don't know if you know who'd win this.
I mean, if you look at the past history on these guys, and again, this is all SRL matchups that are listed there. I mean, if you flip that coin, 2/3 of the time it'll be Unos. Right now, lifetime, they're 24-12 against each other. But if I'm looking at the stats here, they are incredibly close on skill level. Both of them have incredible combat. Unos, with amazing skill, both on the randomizer and in vanilla. With the times that he's put up, he's basically help push the up and A version, the true any percent of vanilla
Right.
Zelda to almost incredible levels that no one, I think, ever thought you would see anyone get even close to, a flat 28 on that. And the sheer pushing that they've done on, that Eunice has done on that. Random Effect also is just, any seed Random Effect comes into, Random's got potential to win. So, these two together are an incredible battle, and there's no way to say before the seed starts which one of these two is going to win, and I think this is going to be a phenomenal match to keep an eye on.
Next up, Saber versus Amazing Toaster. What a 2-0 draw for Amazing Toaster. Toaster's been around for a long time. Saber's been around forever. He's already in 9, as the meme goes. Saber, he took me down in the first tournament. This guy is, I don't know how to describe him other than a bot. I don't know that there's a record of it anywhere anymore, but he's got the only sub 30 time in the world with a white sword on no up and A. He's done 40-minute times with 3 heart wood sword on randomizers. He's got the only damageless run in the world at like an hour and a half. The guy is crazy good at Zelda, and even with the shapes kind of giving him some trouble, he's putting up crazy times. He's got a 115 and a 114 in his first 2 games. And then, Toaster has taken on Zeb Gedney and who's the other one? Man, hold on just a second. I'm trying to switch between 2 screens, and it doesn't always work. And Sis Crusher, who are both very good opponents as well. I probably, again, going to have to throw this a little bit in the favor of Saber, but if he runs into one of those difficult shape situations, I think Amazing Toaster has definitely got more shapes knowledge and understanding than Saber, and can maybe pull out a win there.
Yeah, I will agree with that. That's going to be the advantage that Toaster's going to have, is the fact that Toaster has been playing a lot more recently with shape. So Toaster would have the advantage on that side of things, potentially feeling out where a bomb wall potentially could be. But man, Saber, winner of that first random tournament, and I think runner up in the random percent tournament last spring. Just any race that Saber joins instantly, has a easy potential, not just of winning it, but really good chance sub hour, incredible times. And he's one of those players who actually doesn't even use select swap.
Yeah.
He specifically does not use select swap. He's a person who you look at and you actually see, okay, this is why some players do that, because he will, in those difficult rooms, he will spam the pause button, which is what select does if you don't have select swap on, and take these rooms that most people would just die in and manage to clear them with basically damageless. I mean, this is part of the reason that he's able to have that damageless run
right.
that pretty much no one in the world has ever had. But as I said, Toaster does have the experience in shapes, has been playing a lot, and has been getting good places in those nightly races. So it could swing either way. As you said, definitely an advantage to Saver, but it could go. There's definitely the potential here that if the levels work out the right way, that Toaster could make this a really close 1-9.
All right, next up, you've got Adaginos, whoever that is, against the Seawolf.
I wonder who that could be. I mean, we could go for a while on the amazing stuff that our good old friend Adaginos here has given to us. He has really solid times throughout the board. Pretty much any race that he's in is also a competitor to win. He took down second place, or as I say, you're second place in that first tournament there. You've always been performing well. I was gonna say, did you go 4-0 last tournament in the
Yep.
random and the Swiss part?
And then lost to Jam, who won the tournament. So I can't be too upset.
Yeah. Yeah, no, your skill level is clearly without question on this. You've got a lot of experience on the shape side. You've done all this documentation for tips and tricks for people to be able to go through these types of tournaments. You know your stuff incredibly well. You're someone who, anyone gets scared when they see your name as their opponent. And Seawolf participates a lot in these nightly races, has been putting in good solid times on them. As I said, looking at the head-to-head, you probably do have a advantage here, but Seawolf does own a win or two over you. So again, it can come down to any night, what happens, wrong turns, anything like that. So I think that there is a very good, this could be a fun one to watch. I would still put the advantage on your side, but who knows what's going to happen until it happens.
Yeah, I mean, the Seawolf has a 111 and a 104, or a 64, so a 1 hour 4. Great times, and it gets Shiner and Wing Zyre, so not easy opponents. I feel like he's probably had harder opponents than I have. And again, I've had some races where I feel like I'm playing really well, and the Seawolf finishes before me. So I'm definitely not taking anything for granted here. I feel like this will be a really close race.
Oh, absolutely. I think it will be close. As I said, Seawolf's skill level has improved a lot in the past. So, I mean, if I'm looking back at when these races were against you, a number of them were 6 months, a year ago. So you never know what will happen. But, Seawolf's definitely been improving quite a bit. I still just, maybe it's just the awe of having played you a number of times in the past and the sheer panic that one has when they see you, and all of a sudden, okay, I'm trying to get to 9. Okay, maybe I got the 7th Triforce going for 8. Oh wait, you're done. What?
Right. Well, I appreciate it.
As I said, it can go both ways. It could go both ways. I think you've got a slight edge on this one, but it should be a good one to watch.
Next up, man, this is another matchup that you don't want to miss. Dracados against Pierpont Limpkin. The book versus the milkshake. Dracados, I think, took everybody by storm last tournament. After watching the first match, I definitely called him a dark horse. I managed to somehow eke out a win, his only loss in the Swiss round, but that's because he was busy sightseeing behind me, kind of taking the tour. But that was such a close race. And then, you got, gosh, who has he played? He played against RC Drone and won, which it's RC Drone. I mean, that's definitely not an easy matchup. And then Zoro 693, the first round, who I believe has dropped out of the tournament. So again, not a whole lot of information there, but again, beating RC Drone in any race is a feat in and of itself. Pretty crazy. And then you got Pierpont Limpkin, who I believe our first run-in with Mr. Pierpont was back in the No Up and A tournament. Never heard of the guy before, and he comes in and he starts putting down 34s in No Up and A, every race.
Mr. Consistency, yes.
Yeah, and did the same thing in Randomizer, right? He did so well in the spring tournament, disappeared for a year, and he's back, and he's back with a vengeance. He's taken down Dr. J, PhD, in the second round, and I think surprised everybody in TA when he won in the first round there, which was by, let me find that. It was a super slim margin.
That was an incredibly close matchup there. Let's see. It was a minute
30 seconds.
Minute and a half.
Yeah, minute and a half. Okay, yeah. Yeah. So, again, TA, another one of those guys who's showed up recently and just crushes the field. So one beat RC Drone, one beat TA, who's number 1, number 2 right now on the boards. This should be a good race.
Oh, this is absolutely going to be a great race. Dracados is absolutely, the skill level is amazing for what he brings to the table. I mean, he does, he's not, I don't think he's necessarily a huge fan of the shapes portion, but the skill level that he brings on the combat, the knowledge that he has in terms of his routing has been incredible. And Mr. Consistency, Pierpont there, as I said, when came out of the nowhere on the No Up and A tournament and was putting in 34s without even blinking. If you were watching the race channel, you knew once that 34 clicked that he was going to finish within a minute. And he's really solid, consistent times. As you said earlier, he was able to beat TA in a race, which in and of itself says that he's got a lot of potential. So this could potentially be a really fun 2-0 matchup here.
Yeah, Decretos is definitely one of those guys who said he doesn't like shapes, and Jay Coper convinced him to join, and I'm glad that he did. He really thrived in the last tournament. What he likes to play is second quest swordless with random this, random that. He likes the hard, tough things, one hit KO, blackout. So he's got the combat understanding to do things with very little, and that's really what makes him dangerous. And his routing is really good, along with the combat, and that's always a dangerous combination. And that race with Pierpont, he found a white sword early, right? TA had a wand and a ladder at 4 minutes, and Pierpont found a white sword at about the same time and took it home from that. So you would think wand ladder, wow, the game is already over, and Pierpont still managed to find a way to win. So I think these guys are a really good match as far as their play styles and what to expect out of the match.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. The two of them are going to put on, I think, a great show, and I think again can come. This one may come down to the luck of the draw of who happens to find what early, and potentially who takes the correct turn in level 9. So this will be a great one to watch.
Next up, Dragon Dark against Dig Shake. Gosh, this is such a good matchup. Dragon Dark has just crushed. He's had a 67 and a 60, so a 1 hour 7 and a 1 hour time, and Dig Shake has had a 106 and the fastest time in the tournament of a 53:29. Dig Shake says that he's rusty at this game. I don't believe him for a second. And Dragon Dark, who, any game he touches, he turns to gold. Good at everything that he plays and did really well. I don't know the exact stats in the first tournament, but lost to you and got 4th place in the random percent tournament. Is always a contender to go the whole way. And I think this one is definitely going to be great.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, Dragon Dark plays a lot with the TBF crew, so plays with Matrick a lot, worked on a number of different things. It was back in the any percent tournaments trying to work out different routes that would be, more efficient for vanilla. But, Dragon Dark, those of you who haven't seen Dragon Dark, plays often with the Legacy of the Wizard sprites on the randomizer, which is absolutely beautiful and great to watch those, but brings a skill level as well that is amazing. As 8gen just said, got 4th place in the random percent tournament, and it just came down to correct turns that got taken versus not getting taken on that one. That one could have gone either way in that matchup, and as I said, is a really solid player. And Dig Shake, again, those of you will know the man behind Z2 Randomizer.
Yeah.
So brilliant mind when it comes to the idea of randomizers, knows what he's doing, has showed it so far in this tournament. Has, came into randomizers with Z1 in the first place, so has been playing this a really long time as well. Both of these guys have been playing this game for a very long time. So, both of them have that experience that comes with it. Both of them have the great mind around randomizer play. Dig Shake has the edge so far in this tournament with the C times. Lifetime, actually, Dragon Dark has the advantage. They've played twice head-to-head in tournament or in races, and Dragon Dark actually is 2-0 at the moment. So this one could swing either way. Those two head-to-head matches were still a number of months ago, actually over a year ago. So it really could go completely either way on this one, all depending on who happens to find what. It's going to be a beautiful one to watch.
Next up, K-Mac against Error 72.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, I mean, both of these guys, again, two old school speedrunners that touch a game and just crush it. K-Mac has a sub 30. Error's really close to the no up and A. K-Mac hadn't played, I think, since for like 3 months. Played at one practice seed and came back and, beat Buzz Thunder with a 119. And then in the second round, had Jant and had another 109 or an hour 9 there. And then Error played against Cantaloupe and beat him with a 113 in the first round, and had a 110 in the second round, and had a 110 in the first round. Both these guys, they say that they're rusty, and I, again, like Dig Shake, don't trust them because they'll swipe your wallet and take off for the races.
Oh, completely agree. If you look at the races between these two, I mean they're pretty even. They've played 10 times, although admittedly all these races were back in 2016, so it's been a while. But you know the 7-3 on the official head-to-head, both of these runners with amazing vanilla times, with the exploration knowledge as well. Error, I mean, won the very first uh, randomizer release race back when version 1.0 was released in the first place. He came completely out of the blue, and all of a sudden, oh, he's finished the race.
Mm-hmm.
And K-Mac, just any game he touches,
Right.
he learns, he pulls together really well, and again, with both of these players, you're not going to see any issues in terms of combat. They're both top level on that side. They're both, as I said, I really can't differentiate these two looking at it. So this is going to be a really great race to keep an eye on.
Next up, we have Chess Jerk against Redbird Grad. This is another one of those matches I think is just going to be absolutely phenomenal. Chess Jerk has a 1 hour 1:61:58 and a 66:56, and Redbird Grad has a 68:58 and a 67:40. I've raced with both of these guys. Both of them have beat me. They are both very good at the game. I know they put in a lot of practice. This is going to be a good one.
Oh, it's definitely going to be a good one. I'm looking at the head-to-head sets. I mean, they both play. I want to say, if not necessarily in the nightlies, Chess Jerk is a regular in the nightlies, and started seeing his name pop up, and then all of a sudden that name just started migrating its way up to the top. Could come in with a really fast time on any given seed. RBG as well jumping in. These guys have actually played each other a large number of times. We're talking 76 matchups.
Wow.
That these two have had, and all of which started since May.
Wow.
Chess Jerk does hold a 49-27 advantage over the long term. Over the past month or two, though, it's actually pretty darn even. It's like 5-3 with Chess Jerk, with RBG getting a good 3 wins in there, and actually the most 2 recent times RBG's had the win over Chess Jerk. So this is, again, you've got 2 players with really amazing skill levels, and as I said, this one can easily swing either way. Both of these guys playing really great in this tournament so far.
Yeah, I've had the pleasure of doing commentary with RBG, and we've had a chance to talk a lot. And he does a lot of seeds non-race too, so he puts in a lot of practice. Every morning before he has his race, he'll pop on early and he'll stream a race or stream a seed, and always looking to improve. And take constructive criticism well on where he can get better. Which again, we've talked about that with multiple people. They've asked questions and they've taken the answers in stride and gotten much better. And Chess Jerk, another one of those ones that I remember when he popped up. And in comparison to when he popped up, he is so good. Again, like in just like the last 3 months, just the phenomenal level. There's been several races where I'm just like, wow, Chess Jerk's Jen. And I'm like, I've only got 6 Triforces. What's going on? So it's going to be a good matchup, and I definitely can't wait to see it.
I agree. This is going to be a great one to watch. As you're saying, there's so many matchups this week that are going to be absolutely great to watch, and this is yet another one of those ones that will be good to keep an eye on. And for those of you watching at home, one key thing to keep in mind: due to Thanksgiving, we actually are extending the amount of time. I believe the new deadline, you can check the Discord, but I believe it's actually been extended to Wednesday, the December, whatever that first Wednesday ends up being in December 6th, December 4th, something like that. Hold on, I'm trying to pull it up. Looks like it's December 6th. So we are extending the deadline a few days to account for the not December.
December 1st.
Actually, looks like it's November 29th. I'm sorry, I completely forgot the fact that we are still a week further back in November. This is an early Thanksgiving year. I was like, okay, we're at Thanksgiving, so next week's already into December. So normally the deadlines up to this point have been on Sundays, but we're pushing it to Wednesday to give everyone an extra couple of days who may be having Thanksgiving, to give them a couple of extra days to be able to get these matchups in, so we're not trying to cram everything around people's travel schedules for the holiday. So do not panic. There will be an extra couple of days to get these matches scheduled, and as I said, I believe the new deadline will be Wednesday for those of you who are going to be watching.
Fantastic. I think everybody's thankful for that. So thank you guys very much, because it was going to be a rough week otherwise, right? Because we're trying to, well, everybody's going to be gone for the holidays anyway. So trying to cram in and do restreams and commentary would have been rough. So that's awesome. Last matchup here, Kevin 856 against Jay Klasnick. Both of these guys 2-0, and I haven't really got an opportunity to see either of their races. Kevin has beaten Jay Callan 2 and Penolf with the best time here of 121.32. And Jay Klasnick actually beat Zardia last round with a 114 and beat Rick. Or wait, no, that was Zardia, I'm sorry. And beat Malagord in the first round with a 118.24. So both of these guys 2-0. I don't have a ton of information about them, but it seems like this ought to be a pretty close race.
Yeah, it looks like it has a lot of potential here to be close. I'm trying to go back and look at the stats. They've never actually played head-to-head against each other up to this point. Never have had the same race. But Jay Klasnick has pulled in some really solid times on the few races that we're in on. Cavan has also been putting some good times in. I think Cavan, I remember seeing from the link to the past tournament, maybe has migrated over to this one. But both these guys seem to have good skill level. They seem to be playing really well, especially seeing with who they've been playing against, seeing that pretty much regardless of what you're looking at here, you're going to be seeing some good times. So beating Zardia is automatically gets you some good points on that side of things in terms of skill level there. And Cavan has definitely been getting a couple of really good wins here as well. So this could easily be another one of those matches that will be a fun one to watch here at 2-0, because one of these two guys is going to advance therefore to 3-0. And again, any of the 3-0s for those watching at home will make it essentially, I think, into the bracket round, and then anyone who's 2 and 3 at the end will basically play in for the rest. So those 3-0, getting that third win is huge in this tournament, and one of these two will definitely be the ones to get through there. And so it's going to be a really fun matchup to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and with that, that's our round 3 breakdown. I'm going to pose you a hard question. If you had to pick one match, Fred, which match would you pick as to be the one you don't want to miss?
I mean, that's a tough one, because there's a lot of these ones in here, and I think by picking one, I'm not going to try. I'll try to give you a legitimate answer, but picking one of these is not going to knock any of the other ones, because I'd put there's easily a top 5
for sure
here, if not even more than that. I mean, man, this is a really tough question. I guess if I'm going to look at this card and take a look at things, that random effect Unos, I feel like if I'm going to look at this card, that one's just sticking out to me right now as a matchup that will easily come down to level 9. So I think that one will be exciting all the way through, and it's going to be an incredibly fast match, again, with the way that both of those guys play. So if I got to pick any one of those, I'll pick that one, I guess. But, as I said, there's at least 5 or 6 here that I could easily pick if we expanded the number of them that I'd watch.
Yeah, for sure. I would agree on both counts. I think the RE Unos matches is, while not significantly above the other ones, I think is the one that will be the craziest as far as times perhaps. But you're right. There's the JSR Amazing Ampharos matchup. There's Dracados Pierpont, you versus Krim, Dragon Dark Digshake, K-Mac Air. The list goes on and on and on. This is going to be a crazy round. There's very few matchups that are really lopsided. And again, in those, who knows what can happen. So, get your matches scheduled. Pay attention for the commentary sheet and the restream sheet if you're interested in doing that. If you're not already involved in that and you want to, drop a line in the Discord. We'll get you hooked up, and we'll get you paired up with somebody who's experienced with commentary. Or if you want to learn how to do the tracker or the restreaming, we've got a channel, and Nora's been doing a really great job helping new people learn how to restream. So there's plenty of opportunities if you're involved, if you want to get involved, and if you already are involved. And again, we've got an extended week, as Fred had already said. I think somebody posted in the chat, it's Friday, December 1st is the end of this round.
December 1st, okay. I saw the December thing pop up, so yeah.
Yeah, so you've got basically an extra week here. It's another 2-week round, which is great with the holidays. So don't feel too stressed, but make sure that you get your scheduled, and try to do it early if you want to get, if you're interested in being on maybe one of the bigger speed gaming channels or whatever, if that's a big thing to you, because we've had, matches that get scheduled. There's 3 or 4 at the same time. And, we've had to go back and do like a VOD recast, but be sure that no matter what, we will make sure to restream your match, even if we have to go back and do it off of VODs. We'll do that. We'll make sure there's commentary so that you can go back and rewatch your matches, because, we know that that's a big thing to a lot of people, especially to help them improve their game. So, just pay attention for that. And, again, thank you, Fred, so much for joining me. This was a lot of fun.
Well, thank you for putting this together. This has been great. And again, thank you to everyone who's been involved in this tournament. There's a bunch of people behind the scenes who have basically been, busting their butts to put together a phenomenal show for everything here behind the scenes. And it has been a pleasure to get to see all this stuff coming together, seeing this community. It's, I never would have imagined 3 years ago almost at this point. 3 years ago at this point, I was just suddenly discovering, hey, I can move around the items between levels. I think that was around the time that I was in an airport and Lack Attack was mentioning something like that. I was like, cool, it'd be kind of cool if we could move, if it was a bit different every time. And I started looking some stuff up, and literally, I think at this point, the only step I had gotten at this point was, oh, we can move stuff between levels. I don't even think I had gotten to the point of, oh, wait, recorder can't be in level 7.
Right
at the time, when we weren't even moving the caves around. So I think that's where we were 3 years ago. And to see that this has come this far, we've got a giant tournament going on here, much bigger than I ever would have imagined to get a Zelda Randomizer tournament. This has just been amazing, and just a thank you to everyone who's been involved with this up to this point.
Yeah, for sure. And again, we thank you, Fred. Obviously, without you, this doesn't happen. And I started back. It was July 2015, watching Jay Coper back when Pandemonium was the new fad. And
oh gosh, I remember those days when I finally locked the door for Ganon for the first time ever, or locked the door to Zelda, and no one could get in there.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, like, as hard as people think current seeds are in flags, Pandemonium was a hard set. It was the only thing that was shuffled was caves and the items, but man, it was some hard stuff. And the way that just to see it evolve over the years and to be involved in it has been a great pleasure. And Zelda 1, for I think a lot of us, was like, the childhood game that we enjoyed the most. And to be able to enjoy it over and over and over again in a different way is just the coolest experience ever.
Well, thanks. Well, as I said, it's been great to do this. And, the community here has been phenomenal, watching these races, providing all the feedback. I mean, think about it. Most of these community hints, for example, would not be there without people. Everyone suggesting it. A number of the options that are available here in the randomizer would not be here without people who have been interested in it. So, it's a great community, and everyone coming together is it's phenomenal.
All right. Well, with that, I think we're gonna go ahead and take off. Thank you all for hanging out with us. Again, if anyone else is interested in doing this next week, let us know. We didn't actually hear from anybody, so I decided that I'd do it this week. But if somebody else is interested and you got somebody that you want to do it with, let us know in the chat, and we'll get you hooked up. And because I would love to see different viewpoints on the matches and what people think about certain players. It's always cool to me to see that there's everybody thinks differently and everybody does stuff differently. So it'd be very cool to see. But again, thank you very much to Fred for joining me tonight. I know it was a little bit long and you're over in Eastern, but thank you very much, and I hope that you all have a great night.
Take care, everyone.